Welcome back to CFB Nation. I am your host, NinoBrown, and of course, I got my guy with me, Mr. Get It Done, aka DNow, in the building. And when you see us on the screen, you already know what it means. It's Devy Darlings, my guy. How we doing? How do you like the remake? A little change of the music.
Yeah, you told me you were gonna mix it up. I like this. It's something fresh, like this young gentleman we're about to talk about. So
See?
I'm excited.
A perfect segue. I like how you did that. Like it was almost planned. If you don't know who it is by now, it's ECU wide receiver Chase Sowell, or Saywell, however you want to say it. I say Sowell. Some people say it differently. 6'2", 187 pounds, out of Humboldt, Texas, and we all know, ball players out of Texas, they just automatically have that dog in them, right?
Yep.
I'm gonna mess this up because everybody knows I'm terrible with name, but Cosita High School is where he was. He was a two-sport athlete, and he was actually pretty well ranked in both sports, baseball and football. And he was a three-star athlete in football. I like to do this little thing. You know how I am about comparing him to these odd rankings because I don't think the rankings are ever right. But talk to me about some of these guys in the class and where he's at.
Yeah, so I didn't realize this number when before I looked at the docket, and I'm pretty surprised by some of this. So for the 23 class, he was ranked as the 172nd wide receiver. And some of these guys he's behind. I'm a little shocked after watching some of his tape. So the first one, Chris Braswell, while at Tulane, now at Tennessee, who was ranked just right above him at 171. For his career, he has 45 receptions, 722 yards, 5 touchdowns. Not too bad. He's moving to Tennessee. I don't expect those numbers to go up that much with the crowded wide receiver room, but we'll see. Coming in at 157, you got Terrell Timmon Jr. He started off at NC State, now at Colorado. He only has 14 receptions, 271 yards, and a touchdown. Next coming in at 69th, probably the best name in college football, but stat-wise, not so great. Dakotas Crawford from Louisiana Tech, now at Nebraska. Only 2 receptions, 17 yards. And finally, coming in at 68th is Dylan Bell at Georgia. He has 49 receptions for 535 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So comparing these guys to him, like I said, I was a little shocked. But I will point out he was an honor roll student, so I know that's something a lot of these guys take pride in, being the student than the athlete. So got to give him his credits for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, so before we get to that section, I mean, he has so far around 600 yards, and I think he has a few touchdowns. Let me see, and he has a touchdown. So, I mean, if you're looking at these gentlemen here, I mean, he's got around the same numbers as Bell, just minus the touchdowns, and Bell's over 100, points higher than him. The rest of these gentlemen, besides Braswell, aren't even in the realm of where he's at. So it's like he's done things, and people, you know, they don't give him any credit because it's ECU. They're probably not watching much East Carolina football. I know when he was, we'll talk about it in a few minutes. He was at Colorado, probably had a little bit of buzz. I know there was a little bit of talk about him when he transferred out of Dion's system. That was kind of one of the biggest guys. They were like, whoa, what's going on here? But when he was at, again,
I was going to say, sorry, this is really only one season of production, too. I mean, we'll hit on that later, but these guys had a couple years on him, so.
Right, exactly. Braswell and Bell both have 2 seasons of production. Actually, the coldest too. Although, I mean, he hasn't really saw the field much at all. But let's get back to Sowell. I mean, I'm gonna go with Cosita High School. I'm not even gonna try to mess it all together.
Right.
In his senior year, he had 70 receptions, right, over 80 targets, 1,380 yards, 16 touchdowns. He did have a special teams touchdown, a 60-yard punt return. So he is, he's a offensive weapon as well as a special teams weapon. But, like I said, he was a 2-sport athlete. He was the 109th outfield, I believe, in that class. He was an outfielder and a third baseman. And he was the 57th ranked baseball player in Texas in that class. So it's like the kid's a pure athlete, and he has that. But sometimes things don't always work out. You might be from a small school in Texas and, they don't see you as much. There's plenty of those guys that sneak under the radar. And then you're like, oh, he's a Texas guy. What happened? Now talk to me about it.
Yeah. So coming out of high school, he only had 5 offers. I'm going to start and work my way up to obviously Colorado. First one, Sam Houston, local school.
Mhm.
Incarnate Word, again, local school. UTSA, again, another local school. So some of the smaller
Yeah.
Texas kind of went after him. This one I thought was kind of interesting, FCS scale wise. Northern Iowa,
Mhm.
they're obviously one of the top 25, 30 teams in FCS. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But then obviously decided to go to Colorado, where Carl Dorrell highly recruited him with Jordan Tyson, and that's where he ended up committing.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, both of those gentlemen, Jordan Tyson and so like promised him when they both came in. They're like, okay, we got some dogs in this wide receiver room, some guys on the outside that can cook, great hands. Unfortunately, due to injuries and things that just didn't work out in the system, they both transferred out, right? And we've seen Sowell have success. We're waiting for Jordan Tyson's time. I think it's coming very, very soon. He's about to be cleared and be healthy, so we'll see what he can do out in Arizona State. But change of scenery sometimes does a thing. Like I said, he Colorado 3 games, only had 2 receptions for 23 yards, and he had a season-ending injury, and he never saw the field again. Hit the transfer portal, went to East Carolina, where he saw a mesh of like 2 different QBs. Mason Garcia did seem to be the majority of the time, but there was a 2 QB system going on there for a while. And my dude just kind of got it done in 12 games, 79 targets hit, 47 receptions, 622 yards, and a touchdown. It's about 13 yards per catch, right? 240 yak. His average depth of target was around 11. He was responsible for 31 first downs. So to me, that makes him a chain move, right? It's a guy that can just, when you need him and need that first down, you can go to him. He was out wide 97% of the time. And listen, he's not as shifty as you would like, but he did account for 13 missed tackles. And hey, from week 5 through 9, he had 40 targets, Dino, for 21 receptions, close to 300 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, that's a good stretch of production right there.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, T. That's kind of when they decided Mason Garcia started getting
Yes.
more of the
Mhm.
QB reps as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it makes sense. He had his number one during those, probably felt the most comfortable. But
Yeah.
that right there just showed a little bit of glimpse of what Sowell is about.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a bunch. Like they saw a bunch of targets downfield, and then when Garcia started to be the guy, we started to see 9 target games, 7 target games. We also saw him targeted, in the 2 point conversion. I believe he had one. I'm not sure exactly what game it was, but in the SMU game, he was targeted 9 times and put a
Yep.
big number. So it's like this kid has the juice. Staying healthy and staying in the same system. I think this season we're about to see could be, you could get that almost to 1,000-yard season out of him to seeing if both him and Garcia take the next step.
As you said, that's going to be the big key is if Garcia can elevate his game with Sowell. So, but some attributes that I noticed about him while watching, he has natural hands, really gifted as a young gentleman. His vision, able to find the holes in the defense as he's running his routes, I thought was pretty elite.
Yeah.
That goes along with his field awareness. One thing that I love wide receivers do, they high point the football. He's not afraid to go up, catch the ball. Sure, he may get hit, but he's going to go up, get it, and come down with it. You hit on it earlier. He's a deep threat.
Mm-hmm.
We saw a couple highlights this year where Mason was able to hit him deep. And like you said, he's just a chain mover. You get him the ball, he's going to fight. He's not going to go down until he gets his yardage, and he's going to do whatever he can to move the chains.
Yeah, and we spoke about Mason, and I. It's funny because they do have a Garcia, but Mason had hit the pull. Now it's Jake Garcia is
That's
the guy
right.
battling.
Okay.
I mean, the guy I think who possibly win the QB role in Caden Hauser, who's got the pedigree there. So I think Caden Hauser has a big arm as well. So we'll have to see what happens there. I mean, Jake transferred mid-season into the admitted that he was going to that mid-season. So
Third time transfer, right?
I believe so. Yeah, Missouri and Miami.
And Miami, yeah.
Yeah.
So school 3.
Yeah. So I mean, there's your vet, and then
Mhm.
Hauser will be the young gun coming in. So we'll have to see what the QB does. But I think both of them got big arms and could, hey, help this guy.
Big target right here.
Exactly. So I like what you saw, like you said, deep threat capability, chain mover. He's shifty. I wouldn't say as twitched up as some of the guys that we like to talk about, but he's shifty enough where he can get open. He's got good hip movement. I just like his after the catch ability, right? Like he doesn't necessarily have to be straight line speed, but he's got, like I said, shifty enough to make a move, get into a space, get to an angle where he can beat the DB and keep the plays going. I do like that about him. I like that he's got route skills. I'm gonna go with I seen at least 3 to 4 routes that he could possibly run that he has in his route tree, post, corner, slant. There was I want to say there was like 1 or 2 more. Obviously, they'll sprinkle in as he gets on. You can think about it. It was a redshirt freshman year, so and multiple QBs that he was dealing with. We'll see what happens going forward. And hey, for a guy who's not as big as you would think, he's not 200 pounds. He does well blocking in the run game and in the wide receiver, like pass blocking upfield. I've seen a bunch of times in screen games. He was just like chipping the guy just enough to get the guy sprung. So he's willing to commit to doing the dirty work and being the alpha. So that's something that I really, really like to see. This is always the interesting part to the show. So let's cook this one up. Let's get to the play comps. DNow, like I said, you're getting back into Saturday. I'm gonna let you go first. Tell me what you got.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with my today player, and that is Garrett Wilson. I picked him solely because of the crisp route running. Garrett Wilson is, in my opinion, one of the best route runners in the NFL. I don't think that's too hot of a take. And when watching Sowell, I see glimpses of it. I'm not going to say he's there yet, but there's glimpses of just crisp cuts on his routes. And then my second one, watching his highlight tape, it just screamed this name to me. I don't know. It may be the build, but Demaryius Thomas, RIP. Just seeing him run over the middle.
Yeah.
It's not that straight line speed either, but Thomas was known he would burn you with his football speed. Somehow, wasn't afraid to go over the middle. He had that taller but skinny build too.
Yep.
So again, like just watching his tape just screamed Thomas to me.
Okay. And it's funny that you say going over the middle can work outside, stuff like that, because there's a guy in the current NFL that, just relocated to a new team that I see a lot of flashes to his game, especially when he was in Pittsburgh, and that would be in Deontay Johnson, right? Deontay Johnson can play that outside wide receiver one. Deontay Johnson can play in the slot, move over the middle of the field and dominate there as well. He's a chain mover, right? He's also going to be that deep threat, to make a house call. We've seen all of that from Sowell in just one season alone this year. And then because I just seen so many bombs to him with deep plays downfield, it reminds me of a guy that coming out of college did the same thing. In the NFL, he's made a niche in just being that deep ball threat. And Josh Reynolds. I just think he's always been a guy that worked the perimeter, get down like downfield, down in the red zone. And I see that in Sowell. I see how he does work outside well. He's got good body control as well. So it'll be interesting to see with another QB change for him, what he can produce this year. If he can take that next step, it would nice to see him put around, I don't know, 800 plus yards, maybe get to like 5 touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like that. I don't know if the non-scoring was his issue or his fault. But I would like to see him kind of get in the red zone a little bit more, get a little more those TD6s. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Again, another lovely episode of Devy Darlings. Fresh guy to face. We got a couple of fresh names and faces you probably aren't aware of, but by the end of the show, you're gonna be writing these names down on a nice little notepad and red pen. I'm your host, NinoBrown. Once again, we got the guy, my co-host DNow. This is Devy Darlings on CFB Nation. We out.